Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another breakdown of a viral video out of the Ukraine war. Guys, I am Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran, served in Afghanistan, did, something like 300 combat patrols, etc., etc. I assume at this point you've seen some other videos, so you know my intro spiel. Anyway, we are going to be breaking down another war leaked footage from War Leaks. Link is in the description. You should definitely check them out. This is a large Russian landing ship explodes after Ukraine missile strike in Berdansk. This has gone viral on a bunch of platforms, so let's break down what exactly is going on. All right, so right now we got some cell phone footage, explosion of a large Russian landing ship after a purported Ukrainian strike in the port of Berdansk. So you can see we don't actually have footage of the missile strike itself, but we have footage of the secondary explosions. This is one of the biggest dangers of any sort of ammunition depot, ammunition transport, is that if you expose most munitions to enough heat, they will start to cook off and detonate, right? Which will then cook off and detonate even more ammunition, and it becomes this cascading chain in which your ammunition is mostly what destroys your supplies. So let's see if we can see it. Yep, you can see these secondary explosions as more and more munitions cook off in the ship, right? And that's probably most of what's burning here. I suspect, based on the plumes and stuff, that there's also a lot of fuel on board this ship. Obviously, that's something that the Russians have been very short of. And so that is probably a lot of what's burning as well. Okay, so you can see the other warship, probably another transport ship or more likely an escort, is trying to get out of there. And that's because they don't know what still is yet to cook off. And if they are too close, there's a real possibility that secondary munitions cooking off and blowing up will destroy this ship, right? Right now, the temperatures are probably climbing. Their cargo hold, where the most dangerous munitions or most powerful munitions are stored, probably has some sort of fire-resistant barricade. But again, you see how hot this looks like it's burning, and it wouldn't shock me at all to see that melt straight through and detonate that munition. So this ship is trying to get out of there as fast as possible before it becomes a casualty itself. Right? According to reports, ship sank. With it, one ammo depot and a larger fuel tank was destroyed. Yeah, so this makes sense, right? This is probably a very essential delivery for the Russian war effort, which has been plagued with some pretty bad logistical issues, especially fuel shortages. So seeing this much military-grade fuel go up is a real problem. Right, the reports indicate that it was a ballistic missile. Now, this is what's sort of interesting, is that in order to hit, Ukraine doesn't have ICBMs or strategic ballistic missiles, right? They have shorter range missiles in their arsenal. And for one to hit a ship like this, first off, many modern warships have ballistic missile defense systems that are meant to detect and shoot down incoming ballistic missiles. It may have failed in this instance. Maybe there were multiple missile strikes and one managed to punch through, or maybe they were just complacent. They didn't believe that they were in range of Ukrainian ballistic missiles. The fact that the Ukraine military was able to get close enough to fire a ballistic missile with this level of accuracy is a testament perhaps to Russian military's lack of control, even of areas they ostensibly occupy. Shout out to these birds not giving one iota of an F that this gigantic flaming explosion is happening right next to them. Okay, it talks about the Orsk, a Russian Alligator-class landing ship with a length of about 120 meters. Okay, that's the ship that was hit. Again, these landing craft. The other thing that I think is really worth discussing is that this is a major port in the Black Sea, right? You can see it has these large-scale cranes that can offload cargo in bulk, right? This is an incredibly valuable military port. And in order for ports to function, right, you obviously have to have the ability to offload goods and services. You have to have a sufficient depth at the port. So like if you were to drop a plumb line right down this back edge, it would probably go down 100 feet or more, 30 meters or more into before it hit the floor. And that's to ensure that large cargo ships with very deep keels can park there and remain safe. Their propellers, their water line, right? Nothing's going to get hit below the water line. Now that there's wreckage of a ship right there, it's sort of like someone has lit an SUV on fire in your only parking spot. The car they're currently there isn't really functional, but you can't park your car there anymore. So you have functionally closed down the port unless they can find an alternative place for these boats to park. Or if it looks like there may be perhaps a second parking area, we're going to say a second dock here and docks on the opposite side. But again, if you're talking about a military operation, if you can close down one of 4 docks for large scale cargo ships, you've tremendously reduced the capacity of the port. That's not even talking about the damage to the facilities themselves, which you can see look like you are getting some secondary flames coming off of the port itself, right? And this almost certainly is going to blow up. Wow, this ship was commissioned in 1968 and also was involved in Syria in 2018. That's pretty crazy. Imagine having a warship that old. But again, the U.S., oh, there you go. There's some more secondary explosions cooking off. It talks about another landing ship, the Rapchucha class caught fire. Okay, so this may be another ship behind it here that's trying to get out. But again, it's also taking damage, and it may actually be getting away from the port because, like we talked about, 2 docks having destroyed ships in them, or even just disabled ships, would be a huge problem. So it's trying to keep this port operational. As the crew right now is probably frantically fighting this fire. Yeah, you can see it's definitely a significant fire going on there. So these ships are trying to just get out. This one is destroyed. Yep, there's speculation, and I saw this in the news, that the Russians found a documentary talking about this ship offloading supplies and used that to infer the location of the ship to launch their ballistic missile strike. I obviously have not party to any more information than you guys are, but the use of media reports, social media, pictures, it's called open source intelligence, or OSINT, and it is a tremendously powerful source of intelligence because there's just so much data being generated that if you or your analysts know where to look and what you're looking at, you can piece together tons and tons of meaningful military information. For example, if you were able to access, let's say, all the cell phone all the cell phone pings of an army like Russia in a region, you could actually watch the army's movements real time if you can aggregate those pings somehow. Yep, and they found, yeah. Yep, so there's the 2 Russian ships. They're fleeing. Looks like they're actually trying to get distance from both the burning ship and from each other. This is probably both to get clear of the ballistic missile strike or a potential follow-on strike, but also to get clear of this ship that's cooking off. And it looks like there's actually 2 explosions here, 2 burning areas. So definitely, I think we can infer that there's significant damage to the port as well. There's another angle, right? So let's see if we can see what's going on with the port. We really can't. This looks like it's the back side, but this isn't clear enough to tell us if there's been additional damage to this near side port. But there's a Russian ship fleeing, and that is that. Okay, so like I said, I hope you guys understand that the power and impact that destroying your enemy's logistics can have right? You can watch videos and see in real time the Russian army. They're not properly fed. Their morale is low. Their vehicles aren't fueled. They're not getting repaired. They're breaking and in place. And this is tremendously devastating to their military. So having, tons and tons of logistical supplies, and you have to think 100,000 soldiers or even 50,000 soldiers, which is roughly what Russia has in the country. They require 3 meals a day. Each person eats, let's be generous, say a pound of food, right? You're talking about tons and tons and tons of food a day that Russia needs, and it's not succeeding at getting it. That's not even counting fuel. Again, just to run a tank, to have the engine on and idling requires, gallons of fuel every single day. So if you want to sustain these operations, you need tons, literal tons of supplies. So undoubtedly that the plan was for this ship to offload its supplies and then leave and go back to Russia, where another ship would pull in some, hours, minutes, or days later and be offloaded again, continually fueling this Russian army. So by not only destroying that ship, but by sinking it in the port, you've prevented Russia. You've sort of, it's like giving them a heart attack, right? When your vessels narrow because you've blocked part of your arteries, your heart can't get what it needs to keep running. It always has to be beating. And this is a good way to think about military logistical operations, is that like a heartbeat, yes, it has ebbs and flows, but it always needs fuel coming in. And when you narrow those arteries, you create these heart attacks in the tactical environment, like what we're seeing in the Russian military. So I hope this really gave you guys an understanding of why this is such a devastating strike against the Russian forces and why it's such a huge victory, not just because it produced some pretty wild video, some pretty wild looking explosions. Anyway, guys, if there's other videos you want me to check out, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Also, hit subscribe. I do have this fantasy of getting to 100,000. I kind of want that funny YouTube plaque. So it would definitely help me out. But more important, if you want access to some exclusive breakdowns of all sorts of different content, war stuff, but also gaming content, whatever, you want to become a patron on Patreon. Thanks to our Lieutenant tier patrons: Colt Foster, Command Unit Caffeinated, Jacob Flavius, Chris, Dr. Shadowcop, Porter World Time, Brandon Armitage, Telrune, and Astro Hunter. You guys make my content possible. Other than that, follow me on Twitch. Link to all this stuff is in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next one.